we do go on this very long journey together, and I'm just doing it one-to-one with Mike and eventually all the some of the other actors, but he's doing it with all of them and creating this world for them all, so that you can then get to the point where you can have improvisations where a whole world can start to emerge organically, and you've got these characters. And I mean, all I will say in essence is that because you've created them from birth to the point where you see them in the film, you're so comfortable in their skin, they're so clear and solid for you that you can put them in any situation and you know how they're going to behave, so you can trust it. And because of that rigorous process, you can rely on how your character reacts and behaves.
I mean, I think the important thing is that this kind of thing can only be done, A, with very brilliant actors, and B, with character actors, which is to say people that don't just narcissistically play themselves, but actually are really committed to and good at doing real people out there in the real world. Lesley happens to be the record holder because this is the 9th time we've worked together, and we're still talking to each other. What you've just seen Lesley doing is, you'll agree, by any standards, pretty brilliant and remarkable. And Lesley's just talked about the fact that it works because the foundations are there and everybody knows who they are, and obviously everything about, so that the moment is completely three-dimensional and lives. But when it actually comes to the crunch, nothing matters except what actually happens in front of the camera when the camera turns on. And there are moments in, for example, Lesley's performance of quite extraordinary screen acting, or extraordinary acting, but with great screen acting, where despite the fact that what we've, notwithstanding the fact that what we, as Lesley said, have done is to arrive at something very precise, and I said this earlier, in the moment, in the actual moment, in that actual take, and perhaps there'll be several, of that singular moment in the history of the universe, at that moment, Lesley, you will see her doing something that is quite extraordinary and belongs, and was only ever happened once. And in the next take, it's the same moment in principle, but it'll be a different thing, just by the sheer creativity that's on the go. For example, when she's in the back garden in that scene by the Wendy house with Joe, right at the end of that scene, when there's been the thing about, well, how old do you think I am? 60, 70, and then she's become very insecure. There's no more dialogue. There's I hold the camera on Lesley before it cuts to the next scene, and you see Mary go through a huge range of insecurity, wondering whether to speak, wondering what he's thinking, not sure what to make of it, looking away. You see memories coming in, you see all kinds of stuff is on the go, and that's really an extraordinary piece of acting. They're too red here. But Lesley's able to do that because the whole journey has arrived at this moment, so she's got that creative freedom to actually make that happen. And each take was a little bit different from the others in that moment, as is the case with the takes in the film. And so, going back to your question about what was missing, of course, what is also an answer to that question is all the alternative takes of every moment are missing, and some of the alternative takes are very brilliant moments that by definition, by default, aren't there because the take we used was there. But just finally, about what we're talking about, for me, to stand next to the camera when that moment was happening, I just stand there going, wow, this is extraordinary, and it's magic, and it's screen magic, and I can't, it's going to be great when it's on there, on the screen at the Cornerhouse in Manchester, and everybody's enjoying it,
As a young person watching this, you get a strong sense of what you've said, of inevitability. And I thought it was interesting, the line regarding the right of youth to make noise. And I just wondered what your message would be through this film for the younger generations.
And Wood Home takes a serious and sympathetic and actual look at, in the context of your question, life from the point of view of people who are growing older and people who are relatively young. It's plain that when that sad, drunken conversation in the back garden is going on, when Ken is saying, young people, it's all about young people, he, and they're sharing this together, that he is remembering forgotten times which now seem rosy to him, and he's looking back with regret, and he's looking forward to the pain, the frightening black hole of the future, just as Mary is doing. Again, Mary is somebody who has regrets. You can see those, you can hear about them, you can see them in her eye, you can feel them, and of course, she's hanging up. She is trying to hang on to that, to her youth. So therefore, what the message that you're asking me to articulate now, which I'm not going to, is implicit, because all the feelings that the film expresses, the message is implicit in that it will make you feel empathy and think about the inevitability of time passing and how we think about the way we live our lives.
I got to the end of that film thinking, who is really the main character or the main characters in this film? Because I think at different times there's a lot of focus put on different characters, and was that done in a way so that the audience make their own judgments on characters and that there isn't too much put on from the main characters, or I don't know, did you just want to focus on different characters at different times of the year because of the way the film is laid out?
I experimented in this film with a kind of shifting focus, shifting perspective actually. Plainly, this is a film about these two people and their son and their world, and their friend comes down from up north, and that's what it's about. And these are people who are, Now there's this character who is very incidental to their life, really, although she doesn't think so. But really, she doesn't come round that often. She's occasionally entertained, but she's not a central part of their lives. Actually, in most of my films, if you look at them, the action takes place usually in quite a short span of time, a week, a few days, maybe a month, whatever it is. And I usually like to do that because it helps me to condense the film down to a kind of metaphor and strip away things that aren't important so that you can really get into the emotional stuff of the film. Now, here, I really obviously wanted to investigate the dramatic potential of the relationship with Mary, and it became clear to me that therefore you had to see it over a longer time span. So what happens, that happened in conjunction with the idea of Tom and Jerry and the allotment, and indeed with us deciding how to shoot the film, which led to the notion of seasons which look different and all the rest of it. The experiment was to say, okay, let's take a character who is potentially, really could be a marginal character, and let's bend the whole narrative round, in a way play a kind of dramatic trick with it by expanding time, so that actually this incidental person moves into the centre of the thing and becomes the focus of the thing, although she isn't the only one, because all of a sudden we're in, you know, it's all about this death in Derby, it's all about this new relationship, you know. So it is a deliberate thing. And of course, finally, what I'm concerned with always with these films, and this one particularly as much as any, is that you really experience it like you experience life, you know, central characters come and go, and perspectives do shift.